Hello, I'm Robin Gibson, and this is the Harvard House Money Morsel. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us again. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the bell so that you get a notification of when we release a new video. I'm sitting with, as you can see, probably what looks like quite a cold Michael Porter. It is pretty chilly out there this morning. Morning, Michael.
Morning, Robin.
Michael, the Monetary Policy Committee, MPC, met yesterday to decide on interest rates. We all expected that they were going to hike. I think even the Rand expected that, but they didn't. So maybe you can colour in and help us what their thinking was.
Yeah, Robin, it was a close call yesterday. If we just look at inflation, which was released on Wednesday, two days ago, it fell back into the target range. The Reserve Bank has a range of 3 to 6%, and June's reading, so inflation for June fell back to 5.3%, which is the first time it's been back in the target range for a long time. And it was also, even core inflation was slightly better than was expected. It was expected to fall, but the fall was greater than the market expected. So after that release, there was certainly a lot of speculation about whether the Reserve Bank would hike or not. It's quite difficult. We were talking about it in our investment meeting, that the SARB was almost meeting before the Federal Reserve meets next week. And it's widely expected that the Federal Reserve in the US will raise interest rates next week again, also possibly for the last time. But the SARB was in a difficult position because it's almost putting the cart before the horse. The US, as we've explained, is the center of the universe. So you don't really want to get behind what the US is doing. You run the risk of the Rand weakening, which undoes some of the inflationary benefit. But actually, at the end of the day, if you just think back earlier this year, we've had 2 interest rate increases of 50 basis points each, in contrast to the 25 that we've normally had, where the Reserve Bank was trying to get ahead and to sort of almost take the pain up front. So I think if you put that in context of 2 hikes of 50, the Reserve Bank probably did feel that it had done enough, and it's just going to pause. But they were at pains to point out, don't read this as the end of the cycle. It's still data dependent. So I think for all intents and purposes, we have probably seen the last interest rate hike. But if something adverse happens, we could still have one more.
Yeah. And Michael, we pointed out in an earlier Money Morsel that Turkey is the great example where you don't follow good monetary policy, you're going to be severely punished. I think their currency is devalued 40% this year. So we've actually got a good team at the Reserve Bank, don't we?
Yeah, listen, inflation, back at 5.3% is under control. The Reserve Bank's a little bit worried about inflation expectations. I think over the last 18 months, people are expecting inflation to be sort of 6-7%, and salaries are being settled at sort of 7-8%. So they want to bring that expectation down again and make sure that people get back into that 5 to 6% sort of mindset, But yes, Turkey's inflation rate is 80%. Interest rates should be as high as that almost, but they're not. They've been cut as opposed to being raised, and the currency's tanked, and monetary policy has no credibility there.
Exactly. Yeah. So, Michael, obviously the big burning question is looking through this, when do we see rates coming down, and what does that mean for South Africa and markets?
Yeah, Robin, I actually think it's just worth taking a step back for 1 second here and looking at the last 3 years. Let's just focus on what we've been through in the last 3 years. It is a lot. Starting in 2020, the year started off on a reasonable note, and then we had COVID. So we had hard lockdowns for much of 2020. We started recovering in late 2020 into 2021, and then we had the riots in July of that year, which really undermined everything. Obviously, put the economy back. Our interest rates started rising in October 2021, sort of 3 months after the riots, and they've risen ever since by almost 5%. So it's the highest in 14 years on interest rates. So it's really been a tough couple of years. Interest rates have been high. We've had the Ukraine war, which has put inflation much higher. It really has been a tough time. So looking ahead, I think it's debatable when the Reserve Bank starts to cut rates. I don't think it'll be this year, certainly not. Sometime in the first quarter of next year, maybe even the second quarter, but it does just depend on what happens to oil prices. Unfortunately, if you just follow the news, Russia has bombed some of the Black Sea infrastructure for wheat exports out of Ukraine. wheat prices have surged in the last 2 days, which can have an inflationary impact down the line. Some of this disinflation we're seeing in food prices could be unwound because of these not random, but these events all over the world, unfortunately, So we're not out of the woods, but looking forward, we certainly should see stable interest rates, which in itself contributes to people's finances. And sometime in 2024, we should see interest rates probably falling by at least 1%.
Yes. Yeah. And Michael, obviously from a South Africa point of view, maybe there are some positives. We easily find it negative in South Africa, but we've seen Putin's agreed not to come to the BRICS summit. That's probably a good thing. There seems a bit more clarity around Lady R and whether it was actually us giving them arms. And then I think the other thing is the big port privatization joint venture in Durban. So there is some good news from a South African perspective, isn't there?
Yeah, there is, Robin. I think I was also on a conference call yesterday with one of the CEOs that's been seconded into government to help with the electricity crisis. There is a lot going on. And even if you look at Transnet, 3 things have happened at Transnet in the last month. They've appointed a new board. Yes. The new chairman of Transnet is a former CEO of Anglo-American South Africa, not an insignificant party. So the whole board has been greatly strengthened. They built a new rail siding loop line, whatever you want to call it, in the Northern Cape to help with manganese exports to Quebec. Mm-hmm. That'll take 40,000 trucks off the road a year, and they delivered it a month ahead of schedule. And then they've announced this partnership with a Philippine company to run Durban's container port, and that is, this Filipino company is arguably one of the best in the world running container ports. So you do feel that the momentum is shifting a bit. These guys have got to get in. You've got to sign the ink and start operating. But the steps are being, the process is well underway. Hopefully,
So I think it's just as we always say. Don't get too negative. Don't always look at the closest news cycle. Investment's a long-term game, and there's a lot more happening than that. Michael, thank you for culling in around that. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.